There's a child falling from the sky. Sorry, sweetheart, but I'm not your mother. I don't have any milk for you.
I'm so embarrassed. I hope you can forgive me. I'm just a confused little boy.
Previously, our protagonist Cain had been a worthless virgin with no social life until he got stabbed in the chest, protecting some girls. After this happened, he woke up in a new world with SSS rank stats and beautiful women surrounding him. With this new and exciting life, Cain tries to live peacefully, but it is short-lived once the evil god Aaron emerges. Having just exposed himself as a reincarnated Japanese man, he reads the Emperor's book written in Japanese. As he reads the book, it explains that the first king of the kingdom was a Japanese man like himself. He explains that, like Cain, he was a miserable loser until he happened to be reincarnated into this world. Then suddenly Silk, the white-haired beauty who also happens to be the Duke's daughter, emerges. Not far behind her is Telestia, the king's daughter and the princess of the country. They fight over who gets to hang out with Cain, but he informs them that he is busy the next few days. Disappointed, the girls ask him when he will finally let them hit, but he escapes before responding. Once he gets some peace, Tijuana, the knight's captain, who also happens to be in love with Cain, appears. She asks him when they can go on a date, but he runs off like he did with the other girls. Finally, after running around all day, he gets some peace where he heads to the guild. With today being his 12th birthday, Cain is finally able to register as an adventurer and start exploring the vast world. After entering the guild, he runs into various people who welcome him to the guild. In particular, there is a red-haired man who tells the pipsqueak not to push himself too much. Following this, Cain heads to the register where he fills out his guild registration paper. He decides not to include his nobility but rather just his base stats. He is then asked to draw his blood so they can see his magical prowess. He receives a G-rank card before the magic thing is done, giving him a chance to spit some game. He tells the clerk that she is very beautiful, but she tells him to worry about his own life. A group of ugly thugs then emerge, causing Cain to get frustrated. Having dealt with these kind of guys in the past, he makes quick work of them, embarrassing them to the guild. This time, instead of everyone just watching from the side, the red-haired man emerges and tells the thugs if they want to fight someone to fight him. Once the thugs run away, the man introduces himself as Claude, a high-ranking adventurer. He tells Cain that he sees a lot of potential in him, so he wants him to join him for a drink. Once arriving at the bar, he offers the 12-year-old a mug of wine, despite his age. He asks Cain how he learned how to fight, to which he explains that he had some tutors a few years back. This makes Claude think of a certain someone, but he forgets about it following this. Cain then asks about his nickname, to which Claude explains that because of his group's efforts, he has achieved the A rank. This impresses Cain, but he tells him that he is still far off from reaching the SSS rank, something only the first king was able to achieve. Then suddenly some girl smacks him on the head, introducing herself as Lena to Cain. She tells Cain that there is a lot of sketchy people around town, so if he needs anything, he should call her. Claude gets jealous, so he tells Cain to keep his hands off his wife, but she teases him more, causing Claude to run away. Before we continue, let's take a moment to answer the question of the day. Would you live a peaceful life, keeping your power to yourself, or would you try and take over the world? Comment down below for a chance to be shouted out in the next video. Now back to the recap. After this encounter, Cain looks at the adventurer's board, hoping to find a good quest for his level. Eventually he finds one requesting the extermination of goblins, so he grabs it with joy. He then runs out of the guild hall to go to his first quest, but he is interrupted by Tijuana. She tells Daim, the vice-captain, to take care of the rest of the knights, needing to protect her husband. Once they arrive to the forest, Tijuana wastes no time, grabbing Cain's hand and telling him to fight with her. Cain informs her that there are goblins nearby, so they dash forward, hoping to discover the enemies. After some running, they find 3 low-level goblins, but Tijuana treats them like they are dragons. She rushes them and takes the 3 down with a single strike, but more emerge, causing Tijuana to fall back. Cain notices this, so he buffs her against the low-level goblins, making the fight even easier than it already was. Once she defeats the final goblin, she announces to Cain that this is the start of their long-lasting adventure together. Tijuana then imagines marrying Cain, but is interrupted when some more monsters emerge. Cain decides to flex his strength this time, telling Tijuana to take the peasant to somewhere safe. He then uses his magic to completely destroy the area. After this happens, Kane's original tutors, Millie and Nina, appear on the scene to see the destruction. They question how someone could do such a thing, but end up not figuring it out. Kane, on the other hand, heads back to the guild to present the green lizards he defeated. She is stunned by his power, telling him usually only a C-rank adventurer can defeat a green lizard. To surprise her even more, he tells her that he has 30, not just one. Once the clerk hears this, she runs off to the guildmaster, suspecting that he stole them. Kane is then brought to the vice guildmaster's office, where he asks Kane to see how he acquired the monsters. He calls Kane a peasant and tells him he is revoking his card for cheating the system. After this happens, the guildmaster enters the room, who appears similar to a character. He inspects Kane and then asks his grunt why he suspects Kane for cheating. The guy explains his reasoning, but this causes the guildmaster to laugh in his face. He then calls for Tijuana to enter the room, causing the others to be stunned. Not only is the knight captain in their presence, but she tells them that she is engaged to Kane. This makes them wonder who he truly is, but the guildmaster introduces Kane as a baron. He tells his vice guildmaster that Kane is the hero who saved the princess and defeated the red dragon. He then informs the grunt that Kane is also the son of Garm, a high-ranking noble. To add to all of this, he also informs them that Kane is engaged to Tijuana, making him his younger brother. Once he hears all of this, the grunt bows his head and asks Kane to forgive his transgressions. After resolving all of this, the guildmaster then tells Kane that he will be promoted to C rank, but this angers Tijuana. She tells her brother that he defeated a red dragon, so he deserves a higher rank. After hearing this, the guildmaster promotes Kane to A rank, giving him the chance to take on any quest he desires. Following this, the guildmaster tells Kane that he expects him to take care of his sister, knowing that Kane is soon to be at SSS rank. To his surprise, however, Kane makes no advances, rather Tijuana is the one leading the romance between the two. As this all happened, the gods are seen watching him from the heavens, talking about how they ought to make him stronger. They ask Xenom, the main god, why he needs to be stronger, to which he explains that the main antagonist is finally appearing. Once the gods hear this, they decide to send a master to Kane in order to make him even stronger. The next morning, he wakes up to his maid, urging him to get his lazy butt out of bed. She tells him that he is going to be late for school, but Kane doesn't seem to care. He tells her that he can just teleport there, so he does, barely making it in time. Once he enters the school, he is guided to a classroom where he is supposed to take his entry exam. Once he enters the room, he wonders why he got paired with a bunch of ugly low-level kids. The teacher then emerges and passes out the tests, informing them they only have 2 hours to do it. Kane, on the other hand, finishes his test first, making the teacher draw suspicion. She asks him if he is alright to be slacking off, but is stunned once she finds his test score. They then move on to the magic test, where Kane asks if he can use his ultimate power. The teacher laughs, thinking he is full of himself, knowing that only the strongest people could destroy the barrier. Eventually, after all the low-level kids go, Kane emerges and destroys the wall, hoping to flex to his teachers. He tells them that he thought it was okay to use all of his magic, but the teacher is stunned. They then head to the next test, where A-rank adventurers test them on their swordsmanship. Among the adventurers is Claude, who asks Kane to spar with him. Kane tries to reject his offer, but ultimately is forced to accept his duel. Kane starts the battle by charging in, which leads to a clash between the two, with neither side backing down. As they clash swords, the onlookers become more and more impressed with Kane, wondering why he is even attending the academy. The teacher eventually stops Kane from sparring and tells him that he obviously passed. The teacher tells Kane that he can go home today to receive his results later that week. Once he gets home, he tells his slaves how well he did at the exam, so they offer to throw him a party. He tries to reject the offer, but his maid insists on pleasing him, offering to do whatever he needs. Following this, Kane meets with the king, where he has to explain himself for destroying the academy. He tells the king he tried to use low-level magic, but it ended up destroying everything anyway. After this happens, the king asks Kane where he even took the exam, nobody seeing him perform in the test. He explains he went through the south entrance, the peasant's entrance, so that must be why he wasn't seen. The king then explains to him that the nobles have a different test that can actually hold the potential of stronger students. He tells Kane to control himself, knowing that he has the power to destroy everything if he slightly messes up. Following this, he heads to the academy to check his test results, where he finds Silk. She tells him that he is ranked first in the class, and makes a big mess destroying the exam site. After this happens, Kane looks around the academy until he finds his older sister, who has a crush on him. Once they see each other, she runs to his side, embracing him and urging him to do good on the opening ceremony's speech. Later that day, Kane arrives back home to flex to his servants about his class ranking. Once they learn of his skill, they offer to do whatever they can to satisfy his needs. Following this, Kane heads to the academy for the welcoming ceremony, where he meets with Silk and Telestia. They notice how well he looks in the school uniform, so dances around with them. They then finally begin the welcoming ceremony, calling upon Kane to deliver the opening speech. When he gets to the stage, he introduces himself to the others and apologizes for destroying the test area. Despite this, he is thankful that he was allowed to enter the academy, him hoping to make lots of female friends. The class claps for him, but it is short-lived after the king enters the class, taking over the stage. He tells the students to treat Kane like any other student despite his endless power. Once the king finishes yapping to the class, the students head to class where they are to learn about various subjects that can decide their future. Kane tries to pick an adventurer class, but his girls remind him of his duties as a noble, asking him to take the nobles class. Kane then realizes if he wants to bag the girls, then he needs to take at least one class with them, so he accepts. Along with his nobility class, he plans on taking the adventurer class and some other random classes. Once the girls confirm they have a class with him, they get excited and follow him around for the day. After class ends, Kane walks around until he finds the ugly trio of brats bullying Palmer, one of Kane's first hookups. He sees this and tells the weasels to shut their mouths and respect his authority. He tells them Palmer is his friend, and if they harm her, then they are harming him. The brats don't back down after this until Silk and Telestia emerge, ordering the brats to bow their heads. With their appearance, they apologize to Kane and run away shamelessly. Following this, all the girls tell Kane that they need to talk amongst each other, asking Kane to sit down by himself. While he sits around, a voice calls out to Kane, asking him to meet him in the library. Once he arrives, however, he is teleported to another room with a black-haired man serving coffee. He tells Kane his Japanese name, revealing that he has knowledge of Kane's past. Following this, the man tells Kane that he knows Xenom as well, him having met with the gods a few times. He introduces himself as the first king, which makes Kane suspect he is a ghost, the kingdom being founded 300 years ago. He then shows off his status window and explains to Kane that he created this kingdom using Xenom's magic, so he is technically the god of this world. The first king then explains his reason for calling upon Kane, telling him to Xenom him to train him. He explains that there is soon to be war in this world, with the evil god Aaron being the leader of it all. With him being sealed the past 300 years, he has plenty of time to regain his forces and prepare to strike back. Kane asks him why he can't just kill him, but the first king explains that as a god he isn't allowed to interfere in the world's affairs. He then teleports Kane to the ocean and tells him once he is able to take his cracker, he can finish his training. He gives him a compass and urges him to defeat monsters on the way back to their mansion. Kane asks what he will do about school, but the first king explains that 1 year in this world is the same as 1 day outside. Once he hears this, Kane decides to venture through the forest, hoping to raise his level to at least 600. While he farms these monsters, Silk and Telestia arrive at his mansion, asking why he hasn't been at school. The maid tells them that he hasn't been home since yesterday, so something must have happened. Telestia, however, has faith in Kane, telling the others that nothing is able to defeat Kane. While this happens, Kane has passed months in this world, fighting with monsters constantly. Then suddenly he hears a scream coming from the distance, so he decides to inspect it. Upon investigating, he finds a half-dead dog, so he decides to put it out of its misery. Before he strikes the dog, he remembers his past, which causes him to rush to its side. He then uses his heal skill to bring the dog back to life, using up the remainder of his mana. Because of this, he passes out, and when he wakes up, he finds the dog surrounded by defeated monsters, revealing it has been protecting him. Upon seeing the dog's courage firsthand, he offers to enslave it, to which it gladly accepts. Kane names the dog Haku and considers it his closest companion since arriving in the forest. Eventually, after 4 years, he arrives at the mansion in which he first started to greet the first king. The first king tells Kane that the dog isn't just any dog, it being the holy beast of the forest. Once he explains this, he tells Kane to properly enslave it so he can summon it whenever he wants. Following this, some bulky man enters and introduces himself as Kane's new teacher, but before he begins training anymore, Kane has some questions. He asks about his past life, but the first king tells him to defeat this man first, then he will answer his questions. Kane tries to overwhelm the man, but gets taken out in a single hit, making you wonder what he has been doing these past years. Kane then wakes up to find an unfamiliar ceiling, making him wonder whose house he is in. He goes downstairs and finds the bulky man's wife, so he tells her that she is his ideal woman. She ignores him, however, and gives him some food. After the first bite, Kane starts to tear up, telling the others that he hasn't eaten anything good in the past 4 years. They tell him to eat up, explaining that he will be staying with them from now on. Telestia, on the other hand, is seen talking to Silk, wondering where Kane has disappeared to. While they learn how to cook, Kane continues his training with the bulky man, eventually landing a hit on him after a year. Because of this, he goes and asks the first king to keep his promise of explaining about Aaron and his past life. The first king starts by telling him that Aaron was originally a god among the others, him being the god of entertainment. One day, however, he tried to create a death game among all the humans, causing his title to be stripped. Kane asks how he can possibly defeat a god, but the first king explains that if he doesn't get stronger, then everyone will die. He tells him of his fallen comrades, explaining that his original parents died because of his weakness. He reveals that after meeting with a saintess, they were able to summon Kane in order to continue their long-standing battle. With the first king and Kane's parents originally arriving to the world together, they were considered heroes even by the gods. Despite this praise, however, everyone fighting against Aaron ended up dying except for the first king. This inspires Kane to strive for higher strengths, giving him the power to defeat his teacher, thus ending his training. Following this, he heads to his parents' grave alongside the first king. The first king tells him that because of Aaron, countless people have died, so he needs to finish this war once and for all. The first king then whips out the cracker and sees if Kane is faster than him, to which he is. Kane then finally heads back to his original world, but not without getting his appearance changed back to normal. They thank him for his efforts and wish him farewell, hoping he is strong enough to defeat Aaron. Kane, on the other hand, arrives back to his mansion to be greeted by tons of women. Before we continue, let's take a moment to shout out the winner of the last video's top comment, Killer the One Sit. Comment down below for a chance to be shouted out in the next video. Let's get back to the recap. Later that week, Kane goes to meet with the king, where he presents a sword passed down by the first king. The king then asks Kane about his training, having received a letter telling him that he trained under the first king. Kane explains his training, telling the king he was in the other world for 5 years. Following this, the Duke tells Kane that because he has yet to do any A-rank quests, he will soon lose his license as an adventurer. Because of this, he heads to the guild to ask why his rank is being suspended. The guildmaster explains that he won't get his rank unless he completes a quest that he has prepared for him. He starts by informing Kane of some bandits that have been appearing in an area, asking him if he can defeat them. Kane tells him that it should be an easy task, so he will do it right now. Once he arrives at the destination, he encounters another cliché encounter, him finding Millie and Nina in the heart of battle. Kane shows off his training to his previous tutors, healing them and telling the thugs they will pay for hurting Millie. The thugs think nothing of his threat and charge him, but Kane makes quick work of the thugs, tossing them around like balls. Following this, Kane is thanked for saving them, but they ask why he is out here in the boonies in the first place. Kane explains that this was his A-rank introduction test, telling the girls that he skipped all the ranks up to A rank. They then ask what to do with the bandits, to which Kane informs them he will just enslave them. Following this, he ties them up and places them in a cage to display to the town. He then stumbles upon Palmer, who asks Kane why he is transporting some thugs. He explains why he did this all, eventually revealing that he is a baron to his tutors. They become stunned, thinking how lucky they are to have met with such an important figure. Millie then takes advantage of Kane and pulls him into her chest, hoping to become a noble herself. Kane, however, runs away and takes his slaves to the guild in order to confirm the completion of the quest. After he gets into the guild hall, the ugly thugs approach Millie and Nina in an attempt to hit on them, but Kane steps in the way. They don't recognize him at first, but once they see who it is, they fall to the ground. Claude then emerges, which scares the worthless thugs away. He asks Kane what he is doing with his sister, which makes Kane wonder how everyone he meets is connected somehow. Following this, Claude asks Kane to come drink with them. After ordering some beers, Kane explains to Claude that he is an A rank like him, so he needs to show some respect. Claude then reminds him of their duel, neither side having the advantage in the fight. Following this, Millie tells Claude to settle down with his criticism, Kane being a baron himself. Millie and Nina then present their magic bags they received from Kane, telling them it's the best of the best. Once she hears this, Claude's wife starts making advances on him, despite being married herself. She tells Kane that she will do anything he wants if he can simply share another one of the bags with them. Following this, she faints from having too much to drink, which reminds Kane of his other girls. He realizes that he has been missing school, so he makes a big deal out of it. Claude hears this and asks why someone like him is even going to school, him acquiring the title of Baron, being an A-rank adventurer and having his own mansion. Kane gets embarrassed, being unable to tell them he is only going to school to see the baddies, so he runs off. After this happens, Kane goes to school the next day, hoping to show off his magic to everyone. To his surprise, however, the teacher informs him that he is too strong to use any magic, so he doesn't have to do anything to pass the class. While this all happens, Claude watches him from afar, telling the others he plans on making Kane fit in better. He then enters Kane's next class and tells him that he will be teaching him for today. He asks who plans on being an adventurer, and everyone raises their hands. Following this, he asks them to present their cards to the others, but Kane is hesitant, knowing that he has an A-rank card. Claude asks him where his card is, but Kane tells him that he simply forgot it at home. This forces the adventurers to move on to their next plan to help Kane fit in. They start by offering a mock duel to anyone, hoping to get Kane to use his true strength. Before Kane can go, however, all the other students find an adventurer to battle against, leaving him alone again. Claude notices this, and reveals his plan is to show their strength to the other students, then allow him to fight at the end when everyone is watching. As the students continue fighting against Claude, they all lose instantly, until Kane is finally allowed to go. As soon as he exchanges hits with Claude, the bell rings, forcing Kane to end his mock battle early. Kane asks if they can extend it a bit, but the teacher explains that it would cost too much to continue enlisting such high-rank adventurers. Because of this, Kane gets enraged, so he takes his anger out on the monsters in the forest. With a single strike, he takes everything out, whether it's a dragon or even the entire forest. While this happens, the guards notice it and think a monster outbreak is happening, not realizing this has happened before. Like last time when they arrive at the scene, there is a huge hole in the ground with only Kane's emblem on a handkerchief being left behind. Because of this, he is ordered to report to the king, where he is forced to apologize for destroying a part of the forest. While this happens, a dragon is seen waking up, revealing its Aaron almost ready to begin his attack. Back at the school, Kane is finally allowed to use magic thanks to a special teacher being able to put up a barrier. He explains that there are two main kinds of magic, attack magic and summoning magic. He tells the class that today they will practice summoning their own familiar to help them one day in battle. Kane finally goes to summon his familiar, but to the teacher's surprise, a large explosion erupts after he pours magic into the summoning circle. Standing before them is the Prince of Darkness, a familiar higher level than any other that has been seen thus far. Because the man claimed to be the Prince of Darkness, Kane questions whether he is on Aaron's side, but once the man submits, he realizes it's all okay. The man tells Kane that he commands the demon clan, and he is called Seth. He tells Kane that if he forms a contract with him, he will have all of the demon's clan at his disposal when needed. After this happens, the teachers ask what happened, but Kane avoids it, telling them he didn't form a contract. Despite this, his lies are seen through, so he is summoned to the king's palace where he is forced to explain himself. He tells the king that he formed a contract with the demon king, which causes the king to erupt in anger. He asks Kane what he would do if someone of his power decided to fight back, but Kane can't answer. The king asks to see his current status, wondering how someone can even summon the demon king. Following this, Kane opens his status to reveal he has awakened as a demigod, causing some of the people to bow down to him. They start calling him Master Kane, asking him to spare the kingdom from his wrath. Kane wonders why they think he will run rampant, so he asks them to just treat him the same as normal. After this, Kane heads back to his mansion where he is greeted by his servants. Here they inform him that in the Forest of Monsters there has been a recent outbreak causing concern with the civilians. Because of this, Kane decides to go and explore the forest himself. Millie and Nina then enter the guild and ask Kane what he is doing here. He explains he's planning to go to the forest, which causes the girls to tell him they are doing the same. Once he hears this, Kane comes up with a plan in order to take down the forces against them. He heads into the forest and summons his two slaves, asking them to investigate the forest for him. As Kane advances further into the forest, he finds tons of monsters, but none of them are what he is looking for. He decides to summon the Demon King and ask him if he can help him out with his search. He tells Seth that his search isn't working, so he needs his help to find the strong presence in the forest. Following this, Seth explains to him that deep in the forest is a horde of high-level monsters that can defeat even A-rank adventurers. Because of this, Seth offers to help him out in his endeavours, summoning his butler. Like Seth, once the butler arrives, he calls Kane the Chosen One, bowing down to him in the process. Seth then explains that the butler used to be one of his 4 generals that specializes in investigation. Following this, a large group of insects emerge and cause an uproar in the forest, revealing all of the monsters. Once he finishes up with the monsters, he brings it back to the kingdom to flex on the other adventurers. While this happens, the butler tells Seth that there is a presence in the forest that even he can't detect. Seth tells him if they can't find what it is with their magic, then they will simply go approach it themselves. Upon moving forward to see what's causing such a ruckus, they find a horde of monsters with numbers much larger than before. This causes Seth to inform Cain of the situation, explaining a large number of monsters are charging head-on. Cain then tells his friends that he will take care of them so they don't need to worry. He then heads to the forest where he defeats monsters with ease, but they just continue spawning in. Cain then heads into the heart of the monsters, hoping to end the war for good. Cain continues looking around for the boss, while taking down as many monsters as he can. Eventually he is attacked by Aaron, causing the final battle to finally begin. Aaron tells Cain that he has been preparing for this war for the past 300 years. He tells Cain despite only being able to use a portion of his power, he is still enough to defeat the likes of him. Cain tries to get him to stop, but Aaron continues his rampage, destroying everything in sight. Cain eventually gets tired of this, so he starts using his hidden powers. Aaron, on the other hand, tells Cain that he has waited all these years just so he could see Cain suffer. Following this, he sends in an attack, hitting his own monsters rather than Cain. This gives Cain some hope, but when Aaron continues his advancement using even more power, he begins to lose his courage. As the battle goes on, Cain is forced to summon his familiars, hoping they can stall for him to use an attack. Before he can even start an attack, however, Aaron knocks Haku to the ground and prepares to finish him for good. Before he lands the attack, however, the other familiar runs in to shield Haku, taking a large amount of damage in the process. Once he sees this, Cain runs in the middle of them and blocks the attack. He then uses the power he gained from the first king to use the true power of the gods. With this newfound power, he overwhelms Aaron's attack, launching a huge light into the sky. He tells Aaron that this is for his mum and dad, avenging them after all these years. Then suddenly Seth and the butler emerge, asking Cain if this level of an attack was really necessary. Cain tries to tell them that he was fighting a black dragon, but it is nowhere to be seen. After being told this, he learns that he has won the battle with all of his friends surviving. He then heads to greet his companions, leading to him being surrounded by girls. Seth and the butler watch over this, wondering if they have a chance to win him over with their own children. Despite him defeating the monsters, however, the king isn't satisfied. He asks Cain why he made such a big pillar of light, telling him that the civilians thought God had descended on the world. Cain explains that it was simply just some emperor-level magic, nothing too crazy. This makes the king even more unsure how to deal with Cain. The king then decides to grant Cain a portion of the kingdom as a reward, along with promoting him to a viscount. Following this, he sets out for his new land, hoping to make the land more civilized. After he enters the city, the thugs within the town attempt to beat up Cain to welcome him to the town, but he easily overpowers them. Following this, Cain meets with Seth, who tells him that his wife left him for siding with humans. Right after he tells Cain this, his wife emerges, apologizing to Cain for her husband's actions. She then asks how Cain truly feels about Seth, thinking that he might be into him. Cain, however, informs her that is attracted to beautiful women such as herself. This causes the other girls to get jealous, so they inform her that they are already married to Cain. After this happens, Cain shows the girls to his new estate, him having built a massive castle rivaling the capital's castle. Because of this, the king gets mad at him, wondering why he has a worse place than a 12-year-old.